Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar. We'll just give a minute or two for everyone to join, and then we'll start in around 1 to 2 minutes. All right, it's 2:32. I think we can start now. The rest of the members can join in later. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. My name is Aman Preeth, and I'm a customer success manager at TimeJam. So I have around 8 years of experience in account management. So I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who took the time out to join this session. I'll just share my screen. So the topic for today that our team has selected is balancing the scales, identifying the burnout and disengagement. Let me just hide these control panels. We are good to go. All right. I hope my screen is visible to all. So before we start this session, I'll just like to, state that I might not be monitoring the chat actively, but please feel free to post the questions. We'll take up all the questions in the end. So today's session is on balancing the scales, identifying burnout and disengagement. So if we look at these two words, burnout and disengagement, these are very commonly used terms in our professional networks. Personally, if I open my LinkedIn, I see one or two posts which are related to burnout, quiet quitting, quiet firing, quiet cracking. So this is the reason that our team thought that this could be a good topic for our webinar series. So what we are going to do today is we are going to cover, let me just switch on the pointer. So this is our agenda for today. So we are definitely going to cover the burnout and disengagement, how these are the two ends of the spectrum, and also what are the common causes and what is the impact that we have seen across all the industries and different sectors. And then we are going to delve into two different ways on how we can identify these extremes, what are the red flags, what are the measures that we can take, which will be covered in our balance and productivity slide. And then we are also going to see how data can help us to translate these red flags into an actionable insight. So I'll try to cover all these agenda items in 30 to 35 minutes. So the last 10 to 15 minutes will be reserved for questions. So any sort of questions that you may have, please feel free to ask at the end of the session. All right, so, okay. So the first, as I mentioned in my introduction, that our professional networks are buzzing with these terminologies, these Gen Z and millennial lingo, such as quiet quitting, quiet cracking, and burnout. Now, while these may seem as very flashy trends, but the truth is that they are posing a grave concern to the entire workforce. So if we think about it, on the one side, we have, on the one end of the spectrum, we have burnout, and on the other end of the spectrum, we have disengagement. So while the causes of these two could be very different, but there is a single impact of both burnout and disengagement, which is loss in productivity. Now, to establish the economic impact of both of these, we are going to refer to a Gallup survey on disengagement. So this was done in 2024, where it has been noted that there are only 21% of employees who are actually actively engaged at work, while there are the 79% of employees, they are actively disengaged or quiet quitting. So quiet quitting, most of you would already know, is uh, when we are doing only the bare minimum and there is no enthusiasm or there is no initiative to go the extra mile. So that is termed as quiet quitting. So while this is the percentage, but the economic impact of this is significant on the entire global economy. So disengagement is costing $8.8 trillion annually in terms of global economy, which is equivalent to 9% of the global GDP. And then in terms of the burnout, according to another survey of WHO and HBR, there are 76% of employees who experience burnout at least sometimes in their career. This could be a very common topic, I think, when we talk to our friends or our colleagues in our professional network, that we talk about about burnout very frequently. Now there are only 23%. There are 23% who have reported that they feel burnt out very often or always. Now we saw the economic impact of disengagement, but the burnout impact is also similar. It is costing the global economy around $1 trillion in productivity loss. Now, as I told, there is a saturation versus deficit which is happening. So saturation is the burnout or overutilization, and deficit is our disengagement, which is our underutilization. So in the long term, while so in the short term, goals can be met with overutilization. Usually we see that overutilization is when our demand exceeds the resource capacity. So while it may be doing well in terms of in the short term vision, but in the long term, it could actually lead to erosion. It could seriously impact it could lead to fatigue. It can reduce the quality of work. So there could be significant long-term impact that can happen. And for underutilization, this is actually capacity which is untapped, which can lead to diminished returns whenever the employees are working, whether they are working from home or whether they are working in remote setup. So now that we have established what is the economics behind the disengagement and burnout, we're going to look into some common key drivers and other impacts that these can lead to. Now, different organizations or industries, they could have different causes, but these are the 5 significant drivers that we have seen whenever we talk with the executives or the leadership of the organization. The first and foremost is the resource gaps. So as we were talking about, that burnout is usually the hidden cost of overutilization when the demand actually exceeds the available headcount or skill capacity. So the resource gaps is the first and foremost key driver for burnout or overutilization. And then unstructured processes. Now every sector has their own processes. Every org will have their own, automations and the tasks that are associated. But sometimes what could so happen is that there could be a lot of manual tasks that is being done by the team members, which could be automated. For example, taking an example of data analyst team, let's say they are spending 4 to 5 hours or 6 to 7 hours in their Excels and their Power BI or other analysis tool. So there could be a lot of the reports that they are doing, which are manual, which can be automated using macros or other tools. But sometimes the lack of automation can actually inflate the workload and even the quality can decrease. So unstructured processes could be a huge driver for the overutilization, where the team is spending a lot of time in the manual tasks, and the time which can be spent on bettering the quality of the work. And then we have third is complex deliverables, ramp up burden, and fourth is unbalanced allocation. Now, these two might sound very similar, but there is a significant difference. So ramp up burden or complex deliverables is a complexity mismatch, while unbalanced allocation is a distribution mismatch. So for example, complex deliverables, let's say there is a project which has come up, which an important client has shared a project with us, which can only be handled by someone who is very experienced, right? So naturally that project is moved to the experienced hire. But if it happens very frequently, where a lot of pressure of delivery is on the experienced hires and there is a mismatch of the workload, then it could actually lead to the burnout of your experienced workforce. Ramp up burden is, for example, let's say we have figured out that we need more resources. Now, all the freshers or the new hires with joins, they need like 3 to 6 months to actually ramp up and come into par with the workload. So during that time, there could still be a pressure on the experienced hires, which can lead to overutilization of them. And then unbalanced allocation, as I mentioned, it's a distribution mismatch where sometimes we have seen that in a team that the workload is not balanced. Like one team member could have more workload than the other team member. So that is the fourth common cause of overutilization. And then we have perpetual availability. This is a very, I think, common driver especially after 2020, after the COVID has hit. So when there is a persistent connectivity after work hours, so we see perpetual availability as a cause of concern, usually in remote setups where the lines between the personal life and professional lives are sometimes blurred. So when there is continuous connectivity, even after work hours, the team might not get enough chance to recharge or rest, which can lead to burnout of them. Now, these 5 drivers are causing a significant impact. So first is, as we discussed, declining productivity. Of course, when the productivity, when there is overutilization, a lot of tasks are there, then there is a strain on the team where output is reduced, efficiency is also reduced, and there is a decline in productivity. Now, this decline in productivity is directly related to, I'm going to come to the 5th point, which is financial impact. So we already saw that there are the lost productivity and burnout. It costs organizations millions, billions, and trillions of dollars. And then second is attrition. Attrition, usually, this is a common observation that high performers, if your high performers are continuously, they are overutilized or disengaged, they can actually start looking out or they can exit due to that overload. And then fatigue. So fatigue, as I was showing the previous numbers, this is a WHO survey, which actually tells us that there is an economic impact of $1 trillion. So this is a WHO survey that, yes, overutilization leads to a lot of mental fatigue, but it also causes physical fatigue. So there could be an increase in the number of sick leaves or a sudden increase in the emergency visits or team taking a lot of long leaves to recharge and rest because they are not getting that much time in their regular weekdays to recharge and rest. So fatigue then leads to knowledge drain. Knowledge drain, when the staff is overburdened, lot of overutilization happens, then there is no time to mentor or upskill the juniors, right? So let's say there are new hires which are actually, who are hired to reduce the burden, but if the experienced staff do not have the time to mentor or to upskill these juniors, that can also lead to a burnout. Right? So we talked about key drivers and impact for burnout. Similarly, we are going to talk about disengagement, which is the hidden cost of overutilization. So disengagement is when, let's say, as an organization, we have set logged hours, 9 hours at the target, right? Everyone has to clock in for 9 hours, and whereas the productive hours target is, for example, 7 hours. So anyone who is basically not meeting those targets or who are consistently underutilized for certain days or certain months, they could be termed as disengaged. So there could be a lot of key drivers. First is idle capacity. Now, this is where the hiring has happened. Let's say there was a project and we have made new hires, but now that the project is over, there is no new projects which have come up for those new hires. So there could be a demand and supply gap, which leads to the idle capacity. And then monotonous work. Usually, this happens with a lot of, ambitious people or, ambitious team members. So repetition of low value tasks or manual tasks, it can sometimes lead to, loss in motivation and growth. So monotonous work can be a significant, key driver for underutilization. And then limited accountability. This is part of the will issue. So where there is lack of ownership or a will issue or limited accountability, which is leading to the underutilization. So even though there could be workload which has been provided to the team, but the lack of ownership actually leads to disengagement. Opaque career pathing and weak feedback loop. So opaque career pathing, if there is no clear KRAs, KPIs defined for the team, that can lead to a lot of confusion and it can actually reduce the ambition of the team. So if there is a transparent career path which team members or the team sees, then this can be reduced. Then weak feedback loops, as I mentioned, when there is, let's say we have identified that some people are disengaged, but if there is no sufficient coaching or no sufficient mentoring and the team is not able to handle that workload in a way that is required, that can lead to a disconnect, which can lead to underutilization. And then disengagement, all the key drivers lead to disengagement. Now the first impact, both as I mentioned, burnout and disengagement, they lead to productivity leakage, which in turn leads to economic drag, loss of loss of revenue. Organizations are losing millions and billions of dollars only in lost productivity. And then very common impact is quiet quitting, where employees do the bare minimum and they disengage from going that extra mile. And then capability stagnation. So this is a very, I think, it's a famous quote that practice makes the man perfect. So practice actually keeps the skills engaged. If there is no meaningful work or a lot of manual tasks which is evolved, that can lead to stagnation of these skills. And then cultural drift. So if there are certain, let's say, team members who are disengaged, 3 or 4, it can actually lead to disengagement at a team level, which can translate to that disengagement to other teams as well. So in a matter of like few months or few years, it can change the culture of the entire organization. So there could be a cultural drift, which can be noted in teams and in the entire organization as disengagement spreads. Okay, so now moving on, now that we have seen the key drivers and the impact, now how do we identify these red flags early? Now, before they actually lead to a significant loss of productivity or even, minimal loss of productivity, how can we identify these extremes? So there are two ways that we can do it. So first is very common that is being used across organizations, which is behavioral lens, where we see the signs and the behavior to uncover any early warning signals from the team. And then second will be the analytics lens, where we'll focus more that how we can see different kind of analytics to uncover the truth. So first we'll cover the behavioral lens, which is seeing the behavior of the team members. Usually this is noticed more by the line managers because they are in close touch with their team members. And there are different burnout indicators for both overutilized and underutilized. So first is we are going to cover for burnout first. So first is prolonged working hours with declining output quality. So if you consistently see someone, if we consistently see that a team member is consistently overworked for certain number of days, but whenever they send some work across the client or whenever they send a work for review, if the output quality is declining gradually or over the time, that could be a huge signal for burnout, that the team is not able to spend time in each task efficiently, but they are just focused on completing the volume rather than the output. Frequent absenteeism or health related breaks. So if there is a frequency if the frequency of sick leaves have increased or if we are noticing that, the emergency visits have increased, then this could be a sign of burnout. So usually if line managers have a good relationship with their team members and they share that, they're falling sick very often, then it could be a sign of burnout. Then third is diminished creativity and problem solving capacity. So a lot of, I think, research have proved that we need certain time to only, to sharpen our skills. So if there is a diminished creativity, if the creativity or problem solving capacity has decreased, let's say there is a problem statement which has come up and it is put in a meeting, but we are not seeing such good answers to that, or we are seeing that the creative problem solving capacity of the team has decreased overall, that could be a sign of burnout because the team might not be getting enough time to think about those problems. And then moving on to irritability, stress signals, or withdrawal from collaboration. This is usually one of the, I think, early warning signals that team leads or line managers can notice if there is any irritability or stress signals that the team is certainly giving. Then heavy reliance on a few go-to employees. Now, I understand that, a few in each team, there could be certain go-to employees who are given a lot of projects because of their skill set or because of their experience or the trust of the team leads. But heavy reliance on these go-to employees might actually lead to overutilization of these resources and the underutilization of the other employees. So that could be, if the reliance on the go-to employees is very high, then this could become a burnout reason in the future. And then moving to the disengagement indicators, which is the underutilized. So now there could be very similar indicators for both. Like some indicators could be common in both underutilized and overutilized, but usually there is subtle difference between them. So for example, low participation in discussions or decision makings. It could be related to this diminished creativity and problem solving capacity in overutilized as well. But the thing to see here is if they have manageable workloads, but still there is low participation in discussions or decision making. Missed deadlines despite manageable workloads, it can happen in both. But however, if the workload is manageable, they should be able to complete within 8 hours based on their skill set or experience, but still there are missed deadlines for like there are certain number of events where this is happening, then that could be a sign of disengagement. Minimal initiative or ownership of tasks. Now, again, this could be an overutilized sign also, but the only difference is if, yes, the workload is manageable, but still there is no ownership of the tasks. There is, let's say, a new project coming up or new internal project which is coming up, but there are certain, teams which are not taking any initiative. That could be an underutilized or disengagement indicator. Then declining upskilling or learning activity. I believe that certain organizations, they have a criteria where after certain months or after a specific time period, everyone has to complete certain sort of certifications or complete, certain courses. Now, if there is a decline in those learning activities or upskilling, but the workload is manageable, as a team lead, you can, uh, see that there is a decline in the learning activity. That could be a sign of disengagement. And then visible quiet quitting behaviors, some things like it might not be so subtle signs, but if there are, you notice in your one-on-ones or in your meetings or when you catch up with them offline that, the team members are pulling away, from the regular engagement, that could be a disengagement indicator as well. Okay, so we covered the behavioral lens. Now, behavior lens cannot be our lone judgment to identify the burnout and disengagement, because first of all, this is not backed by data. We might make, a poor judgment, or, we might uh, take a bad day as a sign of burnout or disengagement. So if we pair this behavior lens with the analytics lens, then that could actually help us in uncovering early warnings. So that could be a very short method, or it could be a very trusted source of information rather than only rather than only focusing on one lens, behavioral lens or the analytics lens. So we are going to actually combine both of them, and then we are going to uncover like what are the early warnings which are coming up and how we can rectify those. So when we talk about analytics lens, that's where workplace analytics tools such as TimeChamp come into picture. So for those of you who are joining for the first time, so TimeChamp is it's a productivity management software, and it's a workplace analytics tool which help the organizations. So at all levels, whether it's a team member, it's a team lead or line managers or executives, to uncover what is happening at the ground level. So it provides a 360-degree view on the productivity metrics. So we are going to just see some of the graphs, and some of the reports that we have, which can help us in identifying these red flags. So I've taken a few screenshots here, and I'll also, what I'll do is I'll uh, show the live demo dashboard as well. So first is using real-time dashboards. So our real-time dashboards, I'm just going to go to our demo site. So that's our demo site. Now our dashboards, if you see here, it has total hours, working hours, productive hours, non-productive hours. Now, these dashboards can help us to see whether the team or the team members are achieving their required uh, work hours or productive hours, which has been set as a baseline. So I'm going to take this example. Let's say we take daily, right? And we take a filter of dev team here. Okay, so this is the utilization report which has come. So we can set up what are the baseline metrics on the back end, and then we can compare with this. And then we have another, yes, then we have another report, which is our productivity split, another great report to see if the team is underutilized, overutilized, or overworked. So this is our productivity split reports of all the team members. So I can see for how many days the team has worked. Let me just move this to just a second. Sure. Let me just move this to weekly. So in a week, let's say Amy, man days are 6 days. Amy has worked for 6 days, out of which 2 are overworked, 2 are healthy, and 2 are underworked. Now, if as a team lead or as an executive, if you see this report and if you see consistently there are few employees who are under overwork category and some are under underwork, then that could be a sign of disengagement or burnout. So we suggest that we look, instead of only focusing on one day data, we see the pattern. You can see weekly data, monthly data, and then, come into your conclusions. So these real-time dashboards can be very helpful to uncover the red flags associated with disengagement and burnout. Then moving on, using work pattern and balance insights. So in addition to these real-time dashboards, there are some amazing heat charts that are available. So I'm just going to refer to this heat map, which is of 2024. This is just our demo data. So we have 43 weeks here. And if you see, we have Monday to Saturday here. If I hover over it, it gives me a value of expected versus actual productive hours. So that could be a great way to see whether my team is underutilized or overutilized. Now, this can also help you to spot the lean days versus the busy days. Let's say as a team, Mondays and Tuesdays are very busy for us, and you consistently see that our actual productive hours are more than the expected. But then the pattern is different for Friday. Let's say for Friday, the days are very lean and my expected is actually more than the actual. My actual is less than the expected. So that could be a sign that, certain days for your teams are very busy and certain days are very lean for your team. So your team could be overutilized for these days and underutilized for these days. So some sort of load balancing can be done here. So heat maps could be a great way to see, to spot which are the lean days and which are the busy days for the team. And then we have another report, which is specifically for work-life balance. And I think this will be very useful for your remote teams as well. So we can see here, I'm just going to take a weekly graph here. So we have work-life balance report where we have set some thresholds for the working hours. So if as a team lead, I see that 22 August, my expected hours are more than the working hours. My working hours have been less, right? But the pattern does not hold the same for the other days. So that could be a way to see whether the team is underutilized, healthy zone, or overutilized on certain days. So this report can be seen for daily, weekly, monthly, or you can select a date range as well. Right? So these are our work pattern and balance insights. Now moving to our non-core work time drivers. So if you remember, one of the core reason that we talked about in overutilization was a lot of time being spent in the manual tasks. So now if as a team manager or as an executive, you have an information of how the tools, different tools, or how the different applications are being used, that can give you a picture on whether some sort of automation is needed or not. Just take an example of here. This is a screenshot for our dev team from our demo portal. So if you see here, for the dev team, the team is spending this much time in the dev tools, right? And then social media is taking 13% of their time, communication tools 13%, and then business tools and so on. And these are the top 5 applications that they are using. It is Gmail, Microsoft Office, and Facebook. Now, seeing this first graph is if as a team lead, I see that a lot of my team members are spending time in social media and communication tools, right? Which is not their core work. That could be a flag that my team is spending a lot of time in their non-core activities. For example, communication tools, if as a dev team, most of their time, let's say 80% of their time should be spent on dev tools and only 5% on communication tools, then this could highlight that this time needs to be reduced and this time needs to be balanced out with the dev tools. So this would give me a picture of whether my time is being spent in core activities versus the non-core activities. Right? And just to give you an overview, we can also delve deep into it. So if we go into the analytics, sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to, sorry, activity, then apps and URLs. So if I have to go to by application groups and apps and URLs, okay, these are the application groups that the team is using the most. Project management tools. Let's say I select dev team here. So project management tools, CRM, communication and collaboration tools. If I open this project management tool, it will also give me what are the URLs which are associated with it. So as a team manager or a team lead, you can actually see whether these are the approved or these are the applications or tools that the team should spend time into, and if some sort of balancing or automation is required here. Moving on to measuring productivity trends. So while we have seen the real-time dashboards, we have also seen, top applications, categories, and time being spent in core versus non-core. We can also see the productivity trends. So if I go to my productivity, if I go to trends here, so this is another set of dashboard which opens. If I go to productive breakdown on this specific report, I'm just going to do a weekly report here. Just going to go to last week. So this is giving me what was my team's productive hours, working hours, non-productive time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I can see day-wise the productive trend of my team. Right. And then we also have another timeline where for each team member, I can see how the time is decreasing or increasing. For example, for Amy, the log time is 8 hours, 14 minutes, then 8 hour, 15 minutes, right? The time decreases here and then it decreases further. So we can see how the timeline and trends look like for your team, for certain team members, or for your entire team. That could be also a great way to identify any sort of burnout or disengagement. I hope this is all. I hope this isn't, no one is sleeping. Okay. Okay, just moving to, I think there is something wrong. Let me just share my screen again. Something wrong with my presentation. All right. Okay. So moving on. Now that we have seen, how we can, what are the key drivers, impact, and how we can identify the burnout and disengagement. Now, the most important question of the day, how do we maintain a balance and ensure productivity, continuous productivity, and unlock the right levers? So we are going to look at 3 levers here. Just sorry, 1 second. So sorry, I think there is a situation with my presentation. All right. Okay. Okay. So there are 3 levels that we are going to see. So first is our data and analytics level. We have process levels and we have organizational levels. So our data first level is data and analytics level. So uh, right now the demo, the screenshots that we have seen and we saw, some real-time dashboards and reports, that is going to be our foundation for our data and analytics level. So this is where timestamp would come into picture. So it's going to provide an indicator in burnout and disengagement. So we are going to see this data and, some sort of analysis can be done to identify this. So this is our first level. Second is our process levels. Let's say we have identified, we have the data, we have measured the data, and we have analyzed it as well. And there are some sort of optimization opportunities which we have observed that if we do that, then there could be, continuous productivity can be ensured. So that is where our second lever, which is enabled by data, which will come into picture. So in this level, what we can do is optimization. There are 3 optimization opportunities that I have noted here. Your organization could be different. So first is automation. So there are, let's say, in the categories and applications reports, there are certain optimization opportunities that you have seen that, team is spending a lot of time on certain tools or certain manual tasks. Then there could be automation which can happen. Second is resource allocation. For example, there could be, you have teams working in different geographies. Let's say you have team working in Europe and you have a team working in India. Let's say, certain team members, a lot of team members in Europe are going on a long leave in August, right? So that workload can be, transferred or it can be moved to the team which is based out of other geographies such as India, and vice versa. So if you see, like in your organization there are different teams where, in your department also, if there are different teams where the workload is not balanced, then work can be moved dynamically between the teams or between the geographies. Then capacity planning. So capacity planning, when, for example, there is a, project which has come up, but now, the new hires, they might not be required in another project. So if we have a volume forecast with us, like 3 months or 6 months down the lane, what is our volume which is going to come to us, then capacity planning can be done to align that workforce size with the volume. Now, let's say we have optimized our processes at the team level or at a department level, and we have seen some sort of significant increase or, significant reduction in the loss of productivity. If it has worked at a team level or at a department level, then it can be moved to an organization level, which is the last level. So this is where the scaling would happen. So all the optimized processes which have been done here, they can be scaled at an organization level to different teams or different departments. So at an organization, there could be a skill alignment process which can be set, making sure, let's say there are skilled employees in some department which can be moved to another department, that can be done. So skill alignment can be done. Then flex capacity pools, creating backup capacity, contract temporary staff to absorb spikes. And third is, for example, uh, let's say the analysis suggests that the team's productivity, most of the team members are productive at 7 hours. 7 hours is their peak productive hours. So that productive guidelines or utilization guidelines can be set, and it can be part of the policy, the governance policy, and HR can roll out to the entire organization. So our data and analytics level is going to be at the top, where the effect is going to trickle down to the process level and the organization level. So if our data is correct, if we can measure, that is going to be our foundation for all the optimization and the scaling which is going to happen afterwards. Right. Okay, somehow I'm not able to move my presentation to next slide, so I'm just going to stop sharing and share again. I think we only have one slide left with us, which is sort of a summary slide. Yeah, call it balance equation. Okay, so the balance equation, so whatever we have discussed right now, so we discussed about, the key drivers, impact, how to identify, and we talked about the trickle down effect, which is using the 3 levers for optimization. Now, if we summarize this, we can actually have a balance equation, which is a 5-step equation. So we have measure, we have analyze, we have act, reanalyze, and improve. So this is a 5-step equation. So uh, measure is going to be our first step. So we can only improve what we can measure. So we are going to measure the data, such as utilization, productive hours, efficiency, and that data is going to act as a foundation to establish the baselines for this productivity, engagement, and burnout risks. So that is going to be our first step. Then second is analyze. Whatever data we have, we are going to analyze that data, right? Uncover any sort of anomalies, red flags which are there. And that data can also be used to benchmark the high performing versus at risk teams or individuals. Let's say 2 teams, one team is underutilized, one is overutilized, or some at risk employees where you feel that employees are overutilized and could be at the risk of attrition, that can be analyzed. And of course, when we have measured and analyzed, the natural next step would be to act. So wherever an intervention is required, we can apply targeted intervention there. So for example, overutilized employees, their workload can be, transferred to underutilized, workload balancing can be done, resources can be hired, automation can be done, and there could be a demand-driven capacity planning. So out of these 3, the first 2, measure and analyze, is going to be part of our data and analytics level that we talked about. So it's going to be our foundation for that. And then act, as I mentioned, interventions are going to happen here. Fourth is reanalyze. Now that we have acted upon the data, we will have a new set of data, which we are going to reanalyze to see if our measures have worked or not, whatever interventions we have applied, whether they have worked or not. So we are going to reanalyze that data, and we are going to validate whether, some sort of alignment is required, further alignment is required, workforce size, skills, or processes. So now our act and reanalyze is going to be part of our second lever, which is a process lever, which is actually based on the optimization. Now, the fifth and very important step, which is improve. Improve is part of our organization level. So what has worked for, let's say, certain departments or certain teams, that process can be made at an organization level. It can be improved and it can be scaled. So we can do policies around it. We can, have flex pool, skill alignment, what we talked about here, and we can scale those processes to an organization. So what we are going to do is that even though, let's say, certain members are on, long leave, so that's not going to affect our productivity. So we are going to build a culture of continuous productivity improvement which is supported by the data, which is our analytics lever. Right? So that actually, yes, that is the end of my side. That is the end of the content that I had to share. So we talked about, just a quick recap. We talked about the two ends of the spectrum. What are the numbers, as per the surveys, as per the different organizations. Then we talked about the key drivers and impact of burnout and disengagement. Then we identified, using behavioral lens, while this may be a very effective strategy, but if that is paired with analytics lens, that can actually yield very good results, that can give you a trusted source of information. Then we looked into different sort of, reports and metrics that we have. And of course, this was a very high level view of, high level view of the reports and of the dashboards. And our team can actually give you a very detailed demo based on the use case that you have. And then once we discussed that, we also saw what are the three levers, the trickle down effect, what are the three levers, how they can be used. And then we talked about the balance equation. Now, I think we can have questions. If there are any questions from the team, I think our team might even do a polling session. I would like to understand how, what sort of challenges, as managers or as team members, as executives, you are facing in your organizations. And just let me know if there are any questions. I'm also going to paste a demo link here in case you want to look into our demo portal. So that would be actually, I think, very helpful if someone wants to look at the demo portal. Maybe our team can post a demo portal link if that's possible. Praveen or Divyanshu.
And there are some polling questions which are there. Okay. Are you able to see them?
Yes, I can see. Yes, I can see a
Okay.
question from Hassan. Can TimeChamp help identify people who are quietly struggling, even if performance has not dropped yet? Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so yes, as I showed, there are certain level of metrics. So sometimes what could so happen is that their performance has not dropped. They're putting a lot of extra hours, right? But they are still struggling. So that would be overutilized, right? But that would be overutilized, and you could see the reports that I've shown to see if that certain employee, what are the work patterns for him or her, whether they are in healthy zone, overworked or underworked. And then second is, that would be our data lens, analytics lens. Second would be behavioral lens. I would, as we suggest to everyone, if the channels of communication are open, you are seeing some sort of behavior that you are noticing that they are quietly struggling, I think maybe a catch up with them to understand where they are struggling, that could be very helpful, and that's where our behavioral lens will come into picture. Can timestamp tell the difference between real work and someone just moving their mouse? Yes. So yes, timestamp can tell the difference between that. There are certain ways that we can do that. I mean, first is, someone only moving their mouse, not doing real work, is going to affect the output as well, right? As team leads and team managers, I think that becomes quite visible. But there are certain modules which are available in timestamp which can actually help in determining that. I think Praveen would like to answer this question live. It's coming for me. Divyanshu, do you want to take this question? Real work and someone just moving their mouse. So there are certain modules that we have.
It's
So
pretty much what you already mentioned, Aman. We do have the suspicious activity report. We do have the intensity graphs. Intensity graphs and activity graph, they both will basically inform that how actively a person is working. There are some organizations who may look for screenshots also, so which is again a good indicator. Because if I'm just moving my mouse and I'm not actively engaging into work, then my screen would remain the same. There would be nothing changing on it, right? So after an interval of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, my screen would remain constant, which is another indicator. So there are so many other indicators which can be looked at in various reports.
thanks, Divyanshu. By the way, please feel free to, drop your contact details if you'd like to have a demo of that specific module or any other use case that you have. Okay. How do you re-engage someone without micromanaging? I think before we answer this question, I would first, ask a question that why do you think they needs to be re-engaged? What are the disengagement, patterns that you have noticed? Why your team is disengaged? That would be the, I think, first question to ask. Once we have the reasons for that, if the disengagement is because like there is a lot of workload, right? Then that can happen. Or if the disengagement is that they are not being challenged enough, then better projects or better tasks can be given to them. So I think before how do you re-engage someone, we need to ask what are the causes of the disengagement, right? So based on that, certain corrective measures can be taken. We have other panelists also in case they'd like to give some of their opinions based on their experience. Okay. What if an employee is both burned out and disengaged at the same time? This is a very good question. Burnout, usually when someone is consistently burned out, they are, at some point in time, they actually might disengage, and uh, attrition also. So the same measures as I told, whether why. I think it's very important to understand the why. We talked about the 5 causes. It could be because of unbalanced allocation, or it could be that a lot of manual tasks are there, or resource capacity or capacity planning is not there, that there is demand and supply gap. So once we have the reasons why they are disengaged or why they are burnt out, then that's going to be a base to take the corrective measures. How do we balance meeting targets without overloading the team? Okay, so I think once you have the data, I would suggest doing an analysis on the data. Let's say so if you're talking, I'm just going to take example of targets. When I hear targets, I'm going to take example of work time metrics such as productive hour targets or logged hours targets. So there is an industry standard around it. Let's say 9 hours logged hours, 7 hours of productive hours. But as an organization, I would suggest that once you have the data, an analysis can be done on it to see where the most of the workforce lies. Let's say most of your workforce is at 7 hours to 7.5 hours. And then based on that data, you can set the meeting targets. So it also depends on the volume and the kind of work, kind of industry that you are in. So I would say that, analysis on data would be very powerful here. What are the early indicators should managers watch for before burnout hits? Yes. So as I mentioned, behavioral lens, uh, some of the indicators, if you see that, let's say an employee is consistently uh, not giving any sort of new ideas, there are new projects coming up, there are no initiative coming up from their end, that could be one of the indicator. But I would always suggest to pair it with the data. If you see that their hours, productive hours or logged hours are gradually increasing, are slowly increasing from day by day. Let's say today they are logging in for 9 hours, tomorrow it's 10 hours, or next week it's 11 hours, then they could be on the path of burnout. Can Timechamp help identify people who are quietly struggling, even if performance has not dropped yet? I think we did take this question. Divyanshu, do you want to take this? I think Divyanshu is our enterprise, sales manager. I think he'll be the right person to answer this question.
So normally what happens is if I'm an employee in your organization and my performance has not yet dropped, however, you want to identify whether there is any kind of a struggle that I'm having. There are way too many things which can come into play before the performance actually takes a hit. Number one is disengagement. Person will not be that engaging. He will not give you ideas. He will not speak in the forums. Start, staying away from the team gatherings or any other meetings. You will see subtle changes into person's behavior, reactiveness, and the way how that person conducts the business. Because of all that, you can understand whether there is some kind of a struggle that is going on. As a manager, everybody has a duty to go ahead and look at these changes, because these changes then impact the performance. And when the performance impact starts showing up, it actually is not just one impact, it is a rippling effect of many things which are not happening in line. And that is where Timechamp can give you those kind of indicators or insights. Thank you.
Thanks, Divyanshu.
You're
Okay, we have
welcome.
another question. Is burnout more common in remote teams than in office? Yes, that's what we have seen from the data, and in our executive meetings, that's a common observation that the leaders have provided us, that because in the remote setup, the line between the professional life and personal life sometimes get blurred, which can actually lead to more burnout. I hope that answers your question. How do I talk about burnout without making my employees feel judged? That's a very empathetic question. So I think, as per my experience, usually, honest conversation with your team members, it usually works out. Uh, uh, if an honest conversation with them, like, why do you need some more help? Or I think empathy is the answer to this. Uh, if you feel that some of your team members are very burnt out, an honest conversation with them, like what sort of support they would require, what help do they need from you as a manager, and what other resources can you provide to them, without them feeling burnout. I hope that answers your question. Do we have more questions here? I think we have answered all. All right. Please feel free to. Okay, sure. I'll just share my screen in case anyone would like to note down, the numbers, how they can contact our team in future. Let me know if it's visible. Okay. So this is our website. Please feel free to book a demo here. These are our mail addresses. You can mail us here. Our team will contact with you, and these are our phone numbers. If there is any sort of questions, please feel free to connect with us. If you only would like to have a demo of the product, if you're interested to see, just interested to see how this can help you or your team members, then our team can actually help you with provide you with a very detailed demo. All right. If there are no other questions, we can drop off then. I think we are right on time. It's 3:30. I would not like to take more of your time. Okay, thank you, everyone.